Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Some of you will know that I have been working recently on a novel, my first novel. And I am going to be sharing on this channel a bit more about my journey as I begin this process and as I continue the process of getting the novel completed. And you may also know, I've mentioned it a couple of times, that I've been doing recently a novel writing course, which actually came to an end this week. And I've just been reflecting on some of the things that we learned. It was a really enjoyable course, and something that I found very useful. And it certainly has got me really going in terms of beginning the process of writing the novel. I've actually had the idea for this novel. I didn't think it was this long. I thought I'd been thinking about it for maybe a couple of years, and then in the process of preparing a submission for the novel writing course, you had to submit an extract from the novel in order to be accepted onto the course. And so that propelled me into actually writing an extract, beginning the process of writing the novel, in other words. And I submitted and I was accepted onto the course. But in the process of doing that, I looked up my notes. I thought I'll go back to the first note that I wrote, the first idea that I had for this novel, and it's in my iPhone notes from a couple of years ago, and just see what it says. Well, it was actually from 2012. So the idea for this novel has been floating around in my head for virtually 7 years, and it's taken me this long to actually get down to writing it. Now, I have done a couple of other books in that time. My first non-fiction book was published in 2012, I think, or 2013, and I published one again in 2016, I think. So it's not as though I've been idle. I have been writing, but the process of getting the novel out to me certainly proved to be far trickier than the process of getting the non-fiction books out of me. With the non-fiction books, in the case of one of them, it was retooling a coaching program, an online coaching program that I'd created, and the other one, after I had done that, was a bit easier to do because I understood how to structure a non-fiction book. What I didn't really understand was how to structure a novel, and so before I began the process, I did quite a lot of studying about that, and this course really helped laterally. And what I want to share with you today is actually an exercise that our course tutor shared with us, and it was really simple but really powerful, and it's actually 7 questions that she asks, or she asked us. So what I'm going to suggest you do is, if you have got the germ of an idea for a novel, or maybe more than the germ, if you know a bit about what you would like your novel to be and what you'd like it to say, but you don't quite know how to begin the process of structuring it, you might find these questions helpful. So I'm just going to read through them, and what I suggest you do is, after each one, you just pause the video and you take down notes in your journal. Just jot down the answers to these questions. Don't overthink it, just write as clearly and quickly as you can, and get as much down as you can in 2 or 3 minutes, and then go on to the next question. And then once we've done that, I'll say a bit about it at the end. Okay, so here we go. Question 1. Who is your main character, and what is he or she like? So just jot down some description of your main character, what you know about them, who they are, what they look like, maybe some of their opinions, maybe their history, some of their characteristics. Just as much as you have, or as little as you have, just jot down some notes about your main character. If your book is a bit like Game of Thrones and has a multitude of main characters, then you need to do this for each of the main characters. Not for minor characters at this point, just for the major characters. Okay, question 2. What does your main character want? Now, this has to be a fairly big want, at least in the life of the character. So, some characters, maybe in a fantasy novel, will want to go and rescue the imprisoned prince from the tower and defeat the evil dragon that is keeping him imprisoned there. Or your character might want to get married. But it has to be a big want in the character's life, so it can't just be a, oh yeah, I'd quite like to get married. It's got to be a kind of, I really want to get married for a particular reason. A big want. What is your character's big want? Because it is this big want that is going to drive the character's motivation throughout the novel. Question 3. What's stopping your main character from getting this? In other words, what's the obstacle that's in the way of your character getting what he or she wants. And again, this has to be a big obstacle. It can't just be a little tiny inconvenience. It's got to be a big, formidable obstacle. One of the biggest mistakes that novelists make, and certainly one of the things that I found myself having to get to grips with, is that if you don't have a big enough want for your main character and a big enough obstacle for them to face, then your story will not have the tension that it needs to sustain a novel. So what is your character's big obstacle? Question 4. Who will help your main character get what he or she wants, and why? So here you're looking to list down the characters that you know are going to be on the side of your main character, and there can be a range of these, of course. You want some of them at least to have a strong bond, or to form a strong bond with your main character, so that builds the stake within the novel that you have in different characters' lives. You want it to be strong bonds, and you also want those characters to have a fairly strong motivation. You want them to be helping this main character for a reason, or reasons. Question 5. Who will hinder your main character from getting what he or she wants, and why? So here, of course, you also need strong bonds, but these are strong bonds with somebody who is, or persons, who are in the position of adversary to your main character. So the villain of the piece, if you like. And now it helps sometimes if this villain wants the same thing as the main character, or at least wants something that's related to the same thing. It might be the other side of the same thing. Maybe your main character wants to make something happen, and so your antagonist, your villain, wants to stop that thing happening, or vice versa. Maybe your main character wants to stop something happening and your villain wants to make that thing happen. So they're both going after the same goal, but in slightly different ways, and the tension and the conflict comes from their different perspectives on how that goal can be achieved. Question 6. At the end of the novel, does the main character get what he or she wants or not? And here's where you have to answer. Is this a novel that has a happy ending, where your main character gets what he or she desired? Or does it have a sad, tragic ending, where your main character is thwarted in getting what he or she desires? Question 7. What are the consequences of your main character getting or not getting what was wanted? And again, what you want here are big consequences. In order to create a satisfying story, and I think we all know this instinctively based on the things that we watch and read and listen to, your main character has to undergo some form of change, some form of transformation. And it can be transformation externally, in the external world that the character operates within, or it can be transformation internally, or better yet, both. So the final question, what are the consequences of your main character getting or not getting what was wanted? And that's consequences for them, importantly, but perhaps also rippling consequences for the people that they are close to, the sub-characters, and the world that the main character inhabits. But the key thing is, how does the main character change? What's the consequence of them getting or not getting what they wanted? And those are the 7 questions. And if you can answer those questions in a fairly high amount of detail, it doesn't have to be War and Peace at this stage, but if you can answer those questions at a fairly solid amount of detail, then you will have a very strong beginning of the plot of your novel, the spine of your novel, that various other things can be tacked onto and hung onto. But the bare bones, the main skeleton of the story, a satisfying story, because it includes tension, it includes conflict, it includes change, it includes character development, it includes heroes and villains, allies and adversaries. All those main characteristics are in there. And so if you can answer those questions for your story, your idea, then you have got the beginnings of a novel. And the novel that's inside you can start to come out, which is exactly what's happening to me. More on that later. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.